Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the REDX Podcast. Andrew here for this week's episode. We have an amazing guest joining us. I just finished talking to him. His name is Brian Icenhower. You've probably heard of him. He's a big coach and trainer in the industry. Icenhower Coaching, therealestatetrainer.com. And we had such an amazing conversation. This was unlike any podcast we've done before. Usually we're talking specific scripts or strategies or tactics. And we did touch on that a little bit, but what we focused on was the DISC, D-I-S-C behavioral model and how that applies to different types of real estate agents to help you succeed in your lead generation, in your real estate business, right? Figuring out which personality profile you are, and then what strengths and maybe even weaknesses align with that so that you can do lead gen strategies and methods that will, not only help you succeed, but help you be happy in your business and in real estate, right? We talk about the dominant profile, the influence profile, the steadiness profile, the conscientiousness profile. He had different words for all those. There's many different, DISC words that apply to that, but he talks about which ones are good for expireds and FSBOs, which ones are good for door knocking, which personalities are good for, maybe being an ISA or what to look for in an ISA. We talk about geo farming. We talk about direct mail and email and networking and social groups, open houses. And we talk about which personality profile is a good fit for those. So maybe right now, if you have time, take a quick break, go find a free online DISC personality test. Take that so that you're prepared to listen to this, or listen to this episode, then go take that test so that you know which of these personality profiles you are and which advice to maybe listen for. Another great thing that I loved about today's podcast is maybe you're one type and you've been trying a lead type, you're one personality type, right? And you've been trying a certain lead type, you haven't been succeeding, you haven't been getting the results you want. Well, that's okay, because with this and with Brian's podcast today, he teaches you kind of what to look for, maybe with some of your weaknesses, and say, okay, well, I'm an S, I'm going to put on a D hat so that I can go get some aggressive expired for sell by owner stuff, stepping into another profile's shoes to succeed there while you build maybe a more long-term referral relationship driven business. And then taking off that hat once you meet those goals or accomplish those needs and come back to what you're more comfortable with, right? So many different dynamic ways and flexible ways to apply this DISC behavioral model to your real estate business. Brian goes over it in so much detail, so please stick around. Before we get started, I just want to plug a couple of quick things here. Let me share my screen. First and foremost, we have a new website, and it looks amazing. So go check out our new website, watch a demo, click through our different product pages. Please go check out the blog and the podcast. Those are both under training. We have so many great articles and so many great podcast episodes, including today's, that will be on there to listen to. The next thing is, it just popped up on our website, the Complete Objection Handler e-guide. So go to our website and you can opt into that there, or just go to redx.bz/handle it. Again, that's redx.bz/handle it, one word, and you will find, I'm not kidding, dozens and dozens of different objection handlers for any occasion, whether you're prospecting expireds for sell by owners, geo leads, circle prospecting for rent by owners, pre-foreclosures. We've got it all. It's your ultimate playbook for better conversations and more appointments. And it's totally free, right? redx.bz/handle it. Download that objection handler e-guide. And that will even help you after you listen to today's conversation with Brian Icenhower when you start and go prospect those lead types that you're best suited for. So please check that out. Enjoy today's episode. And without further ado, let's get started with Brian Icenhower. Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the REDX Podcast. My name is Andrew, and today we have a very special guest. He is a coach, he is a trainer, he is a thought leader in the industry. We've had him on the podcast before, and I'm so excited to have him back. Brian Icenhower. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Andrew. Thanks. It's great to be back. It's great to
Awesome.
be back.
Yeah,
It's my favorite podcast. You know that? It really is.
Well,
It
thank
is.
you,
It's
Brian.
my favorite podcast. It is.
We love to hear that, and we're excited to have you back. Like I said, we've had Brian on the podcast before, but today I am particularly excited because we are talking about something we've never talked about on the podcast before, something that Brian is bringing to the table that he's prepared for us. We're going to be talking about the DISC, D-I-S-C behavioral model and the importance of understanding that for effective lead generation in real estate. So that's all I know about basically that we're going to dive into, right, Brian? Is that a fair
That's
overview?
all I've told you. This is like, I'll elaborate a little further. I'll give you a subtitle. I think it's important for leaders to know, especially coaches, trainers, when they are training different agents. Like, let's say I'm a real estate team leader, right? And let's say I've got 20 agents on my real estate team. Well, they're not all the same. And certain agents with certain behavioral profiles are going to be more inclined to lead generate through maybe FSBOs or expired listings than other types of lead generation methods, like building up their sphere of influence or circle prospecting or farming or converting online leads, whatever that may be. So they, believe it or not, depending on the behavioral profile, they have different tendencies. So therefore they have different strengths and weaknesses. And generally speaking, as leaders in all of business, we always want to kind of try to keep our people operating primarily in their strengths. So trying to find the best way for different types of agents with different behavioral profiles to succeed is kind of the aim here. And trying to, and a lot of people don't do that. It's one size fits all. Everybody's going to do that. And you're going to see certain people, if you haven't ever considered looking at behavioral profiles before you start telling different people how to generate business, you might learn something from this today.
Yeah. And I love hearing that. And I love what you're saying, because I think a lot of agents, they jump in, maybe they're new, or maybe they're at a new brokerage, and their broker or their team lead says, hey, you're going to go do FSBOs and expireds today. And what if that's not a good fit for them, right? Or what if their behavioral model and their personality isn't a good fit for that lead type? Well, they're going to hate it. They're not going to like their job. They're not going to succeed, and it's going to be bad. So I'm super excited, Brian. We'll get into a little bit deeper here in just a second. I just want to welcome the audience and let them know, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, if you're listening to this, pay close attention. It's going to be a great podcast. Please like and subscribe and follow us as always. We go live every Thursday, 1:30 Mountain Time, here on YouTube and Facebook, and then on the audio platforms after that. So that's all I'll say. Brian, let's get into it. Let's dive into these DISC models and the different personalities here and talk about how that pertains to agents here.
Yeah, one thing I'll say to start out, my coaching company, we tend to gear ourselves towards leaders, right? So we coach a lot of the highest performing teams, brokerage owners. So we tend to gear ourselves towards leadership. But if you're not a leader and you're a solo agent, this applies to you the same. I'm just telling you how you should be trained. So you should be training yourself. These different considerations, these different tendencies, very important to take in mind. That's the one thing I want to explain to everybody is this should apply to anyone who's doing some sort of lead generation activity to try and generate new business or even convert existing business. That's number one. So the other thing that's kind of unique about our company that I'll say is we tend to not believe that everybody should be trained one way. There are different strokes, different folks, different custom fits, different teams, different models, different geographies, different price points. So that customization of coaching and training will really increase your effectiveness if you are a leader and you have different people. And another way we do that, when we coach somebody, coaching is leadership and leadership is coaching in the real estate industry. Right. So when we have a new client, the first thing I want to know is their behavioral profile to make sure we keep them operating in their strengths as much as possible. And if I have a real estate team leader, the first thing I want to know with a new agent on my team is what is their behavioral profile so I can communicate to them in the right way, talk to them the right way, motivate them the right way, and of course, make sure that they're actually doing some sort of lead generation that's not going to feel like they're putting their head in a wood chipper all day long. So I want to make sure that they actually, have a chance of succeeding here. Now, with that being said, I do want to make sure, I do say that behavior should never also be an excuse. Okay. Just because you're not a profile that has a general tendency to lead generate a certain way.
Right.
It's not an excuse for avoiding or dismissing certain lead generation strategies, because behavior just means you're going to feel a little bit more discomfort early on.
Right.
So the fact is, with just about any lead generation activity, if you do something uncomfortably enough times, it'll start to become comfortable.
Right.
So but just understand, certain people are going to make it feel like waterboarding a little bit longer. And as a leader, you can recognize it's going to take this person a little bit longer to get comfortable and get proficient at this. So a little bit more patience should also be exhibited by the leader as well. That's really important here.
Well, and I love that you're pointing out that these are going to serve, these DISC behavior profiles are going to serve multiple purposes. It's not just, what lead types you should or shouldn't prospect. It's not just, how you work. It's how you communicate with others, I think, is huge. How leaders should communicate with you, how maybe you should communicate with fellow agents, right? We do that here at REDX. We have kind of our own version of this that we follow, and it has served us tremendously in figuring out, okay, I'm going to go talk to my boss, Curtis, the president of the company. How can I best approach him and speak to him and kind of adjust my language and my behavior to meet his needs? He does the same to me, and it just makes things mesh so much easier. So I love that we're getting into the communication styles as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very, very important. And I mean, to be able to effectively coach your lead, you're going to have to do that. Sure. And so I refer to this for those people that have to get uncomfortable for a while and get outside their comfort zone. I mean, we all do. Everybody has a job. Heck, I don't like going to the gym in the morning. You know what I mean? Like I don't, but I know I need to, and I like the results. I don't have to necessarily like the activity, but I do need to be motivated by the results. So when I'm at the gym, I call it holding my breath. I'm out of my behavior right now. It's not something I want to do. And, if you're making 2 hours of lead generation calls, let's say on a weekday morning that might be your discomfort time. And so the ability to be flexible with your behavior and hold your breath is what kind of creates that, Jedi ninja warrior that becomes a successful, flexible profile. So we're not always looking for comfort. I think that's very important to say.
That is important. Yeah. And I think the more you understand your profile, the more you can be self-aware of it and be flexible in those ways.
Absolutely. If you know it yourself, okay, this might initially be more difficult for me.
Sure.
Right. So that's the first thing I want to qualify. The second qualifier I got is this. I do realize there are other behavioral assessments out there that are more accurate and more advanced and more exciting than the DISC behavioral profile. And that's great. And I agree with it. And we use a lot of them, actually. However, the reason I tend to generally speak in the DISC is because it's very, number one, it applies to lots of different aspects. It's not just hiring, for example. We can mirror and match behavior with it. We can communicate to people the right way. We can put them in lead generation categories with it. It's very inexpensive. It's pretty accurate, for the most part. It's probably the least accurate of all the behavioral profiles, but it's got about an 85% accuracy rate. And if you are actually very experienced with the DISC, you can get a pretty good read on people without even having them take an assessment, which only takes about 15 minutes. And our clients get it for free. I mean, it's pretty easy. I mean, you can go to Tony Robbins' website. You can go to our website out there at Icenhower Coaching. You can get them for free too. So it's very affordable. But the reason I like it the most is because you can see it. It's not like I have to get these results out of a computer somewhere. And then what do I do with these results? I know how to hire them and I know what job to put them in, but I may not know how to use it to interact with them and work with them and train them. The DISC just has all these multi-use purposes. It's a great place to start. It's a great place to start. So that's why I like to talk with it most of the time. Okay. Cool. So those are my two qualifiers. So really quickly, I want to explain to you what the DISC is very quickly. I know this, so I'll be real fast because a lot of you do know, especially your viewers and listeners, Andrew, are typically very adept. But basically the disc is in, and actually for those of you that are watching, you can see a slide we'll put up on the screen here. Just so we know, the Ds are your drivers. Okay. They're very direct. They're dominant. They're blunt. They're very much, I'm going to do it. Square peg, circle hole. I'm going to get it done. They are into a challenge. They like competition. They're pretty fearless. They move very, very quickly and rapidly, almost like a bull in the china shop. Sometimes everybody kind of wants to be a D, it seems like, unfortunately. They tend to be very good warriors, but not naturally the best chiefs. So a lot of D team leaders out there that generate a lot of business that have a hard time slowing down and putting in good systems. So for our clientele, those team leaders and broker owners, we really have to slow them down because they sometimes they don't like the systems part. They want the systems, they just don't like putting them in, right? So they're very challenged, or they ask, what do I do? Just tell me, skip the veggies, get me right to the steak. I want to go forward, right? That's your D. I'll move across to the I, and the I, that's your influencer. This I consider your prototype realtor. The vast majority of real estate agents that succeed are naturally I's, because they're highly social people. They love people. You see, D's move fast, like I's move fast, but D's tend to see people getting in the way. They just, they are very much like, hey, okay, I just want to end this conversation very quickly, where the I will stay in conversation. They're like social butterflies. They float all over the room, extremely social, highly positive, emotional. They are very, very quick as well, too. Very optimistic people, love recognition, whereas the D loves to win. They like a challenge. They want to see the bottom line. They're very dollar oriented as well, too, where the I really likes the recognition. They want to be known as number one in town, or they want to have their signs up all over the place, and they float through a room. They move very, very quick. I's hate rejection. Okay. That's their biggest fear. It's important to know they don't like to lose, right? So think of that when you think about conversion rates and prospecting for lead generation, right?
I was going to say rejection is huge in real estate, especially in prospecting.
Absolutely. Circle prospecting, which has a relatively low conversion rate compared to things like FSBOs and expireds or working with your SOI. That is a very hard thing for an I behavior to do. You have an I's calling around listings. And circle prospecting, it can be very challenging. That's a lot of rejection for an I. I mean, they're just getting hung up on and screamed at all day long, right? So remember that. That can be a little bit tough. Where the D's, their biggest fear is time. They don't like their time wasted. They want results now. So a D can have a very hard time with a referral-based business, right? Because you're calling a bunch of people but they may not necessarily want to buy or sell their house right now. This is just people in their database, right? So you're just cultivating them for when they do want to buy or sell. So that actually can be very challenging because they don't get that immediate reward that they would get from an expired listing, which has a relatively high conversion rate for contacts. They get, they might get a win every day. They might get a listing appointment every day if they're proficient at it. And they're talking to 25 people a day. It's very possible to get a listing every single day, and they get a win every day. And that's just like a shot of adrenaline and dopamine at the same time for that D behavior. So that's why they tend to be more proficient at that type of prospecting, for example, right? These are just examples. We'll dive a little bit deeper. Then we move into the S's and the S behavior. They are another people person like the I. They're just a little bit more reserved, or a lot more reserved. They are motivated by steady, stable, good listeners, they're more introvert than extrovert. The I would be that extrovert. The S is more of the introvert, right? So they're a little shyer, right? There's tons of these. There's more of these in real estate, believe it, than there are I's. However, they tend to want to be on real estate teams because they love to convert business as opposed to generate it. So if someone else can generate it for them, they prefer it because they don't like to put themselves out there naturally. Without good coaching or training, they will just go with comfort. And comfort is, let it come to me. They tend to have joined real estate because they watched HGTV and they liked showing houses. They love the customer service part. But how do we get a client to show houses too? As a struggle. The biggest percentage of the population is by far S's. And that's true with the real estate population as well, too. They're always the hero in the movie. They're the good guy in every, in the media. They're the ones that are more quiet, reserved. They're what we are told to be. They listen very well. They're, you know what I mean? They're very conscientious of other people. They don't want to disrupt. They avoid conflict. They're very logical people. Everything we're told to be, right? They're the ones that unfortunately say, hey, I don't want to call people I don't know, because, man, I don't like it when people call me and I don't know them. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they're very hard to motivate through that logic. It can be very, very tough. So they do like to understand things first in a very big way. They do move much slower because of that processing process. So they become naturally very good at that referral base, because they will love on their people. They will slowly build a sphere of influence and cultivate, and they will have the patience to grow it over time, for example. They like people as well, but they just aren't but they are much more patient, much slower, don't need that immediate result. Whereas the I, if they don't get that result right away, they may jump to a different lead generation. They just keep trying things. And if they don't work, we move to the next, they move to the next, they move to the next. They don't give it that patience. So S just actually will have the patience if you explain what I'm telling you right now to them. If you make them self-aware, okay, then they learn who they are. They appreciate it. S's love to learn about the disc. They love to learn about anything. That's value adds to them. They are amazingly coachable, amazingly learnables, but they are not big self-starters. But if you can get an S to lead a real estate team, they are phenomenal leaders, amazing operators. They're highly diplomatic. People love them and gravitate to them. The D's, quite frankly, they are typically the team leaders. And I know I can talk about D's because I am one. And I'm not a great operator. I've been an operator and I can make it work. But boy, you let me operate too long, I have a hard time, leading people. I'm smart now. I get people to run my companies. I just can't do it myself, right? Because I know I am not patient enough with people, right? That can create some bad behavior from time to time. That self-awareness is everything. Lastly, we move over to the C behavior, right? The C behavior, they are, again, now we're getting back away from the people over with the D's, except they are not fast like a D. They are very slow like a D. People get in the way to them too. They like to learn things on their own. So they go on to Google for some reason, as if that's not somehow created by people. But the point of the matter is they like to learn things on their own and find the information on their own. So they will tend to have their own really strange ideas, even though there aren't a whole lot of new ideas on how to generate business. They will gravitate to ones they discover themselves rather than the methods that are told to them. So we do need to typically work through those objections as well too. They are very compliant people. They are very accurate people. Think of an engineer. 2 plus 2 equals 4. They're extremely detail oriented, and they do like to have control of everything. They don't like gray area. They love to know conversion rates. Like if you're circle prospecting and you've got to talk to 100 people to get one appointment, then I want to tell them that, or they will quit somewhere along the lines on the 99 rejections, right? So they need to know what the conversion rate, what's normal. They need to know the score, what's right, what's wrong, what are the parameters of this. They need to have it all laid out. So it takes a lot more. Whereas the D, who doesn't like people either, you can just say, hey, it's a race, you versus those other 3 people. We're going to gamify it, and you win if you talk to the most people before 10 o'clock today. The D just is off and running. They don't even need to know anything more than that. Like, we got a game, we got a competition. The C is different. They're much more logical. They want to know why. They want to know everything. And the S is this way too. They tend to want to know how to do it before they even start, because the C biggest fear is failure or doing things incorrect that results in criticism. They don't like to be criticized. S's don't like change a lot, so they want to go find something that works because they don't like failure as well either. So they will both have a tendency to want to learn about everything before they actually start doing, where we usually have to motivate them to get into action, say, no, a lot of this you're just going to have to learn on the road too, through a little bit of trial and error. but you got to keep teaching them along the way to minimize that. And they will be receptive to learning, where the D's and I's typically, just think ADHD. The D's and the I's, they don't want to slow down and learn. They just want to go. Let me out the gates. The learning's boring. The C's and the D's will learn. In fact, so much so, you better teach them. You need to have training systems for them if you want them to succeed. So that's the general, disc of how the disc works.
Today's podcast is brought to you by REDX GeoLeads, one of the best lead types to add to your prospecting toolbox. And here's why. First, GeoLeads creates leads on demand. Every agent needs a constant flow of new contacts that turn into transactions both now and in the future. With GeoLeads, you can connect with thousands of homeowners every month to build a powerful pipeline for your business. Second, GeoLeads are incredibly versatile. They can be used to find motivated buyers and sellers in any neighborhood and at any price point. And finally, GeoLeads is the very best tool for your just listed and just sold campaigns. All you have to do is select an area on the map near your recent listing or sale, click Create Leads, and REDX does all the work to generate a fresh list of leads for you to connect with. When you sign up for REDX GeoLeads for just $69.99 a month, you get 2,500 unique property searches every single month. And with each property search, we typically include owner names and multiple phone numbers, both landlines and cell phones, so you have the best chance of reaching the right people in any neighborhood. If you're interested in prospecting GeoLeads, sign up today at redx.com/podcast and save $150 on your setup fee. Your business will thank you.
We can talk a little bit about the different profiles for each of them a little bit more. So with the D profile, we'll start there and we'll go in the same order, kind of around the quadrants here. They are really good at rolling with rejection. As good as anybody else is. No one likes to be rejected. Don't get me wrong. But D's, it just hurts less. So if I tell them that you've got to call, I would say for sale by owners and expireds, you get the hardest hangups. Okay. But I can tell you right now, if I were going to go back into real estate in a town that I didn't live in, actually, no, even if I lived in that town, if I went back into real estate today and I wanted to get business as quickly as I could, I would do two things. I would always build my sphere of influence, right? You know what I mean? Like that is the foundation of our coaching program, is we build a sphere of influence and work a referral-based business. So business comes to you over time, right? But I also want business right now, right? That takes a while. I got to let them all know I'm back in the business and kind of let them trust me, like I know what I'm doing, all that kind of stuff. But if I want a business right now, the first thing I would do, I would call expired listings. I don't care if there's no expireds. I'd call old expireds. I would just call the expireds that happen because it has the highest conversion rate. That's in my opinion. There's I'm sure there's differing opinions out there, but I have been doing this for a long time. It's been 35 years, and expireds have always been the highest conversion rate, and they still seem to be. Yeah. But there's a lot of pain associated with them because you call expired listings, a bunch of people call them that morning, and they're tired of that and they hang up on you. So the rejection is a hard hang up. Like often you get called a lot of things. It's just not fun. It's not pleasant. The D's, that water off their back. The I's, it's like a house of horrors. It's really, really tough. C's can handle a little bit too, believe it or not, because people get in the way of them. They're like, just another, person, so they actually, the C's will surprise you on the expires. And FSBOs are kind of the same way. FSBOs see very little value in realtors. They really do. And they get called a lot. So they don't really think realtors are worth that much, obviously, or they wouldn't be trying to sell it themselves. Right. So they can say some pretty harsh things too, but at the same time, they do want to sell their house. So they may love on you a little bit. You get a mixed bag there. So though, FSBOs can be very tough on those too as well, because the rejection is very hard. Door knocking, D's are really good at, because that's a face-to-face rejection. That's a good one. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's, that takes some gumption right there. You got to really be okay to let water get off your, a duck's back on that one. You just got to go door to door and really push it. But boy, it shows hustle. All of these lead generation strategies I love. and we coach them all. We train them all. And we do coach. I don't care who you are and whether you like SOIs or not. We will make the Ds slow down and put an SOI database together. That should be the foundation, because as we generate new business and new leads and new relationships from whatever prospecting method for business from people we don't know generates, it needs to go into our SOI system, because we can continue to grow this foundation of business that comes back to us and calls us randomly. Everybody loves that come list me phone call.
Right.
And that's how you get it. You know, you don't want to just keep generating new business and not have it come back to you. So I believe in all of these. They all work, you know what I'm saying? But I will tell you, certain ones work better than others. The D, really good previewing properties, which is kind of like door knocking, right? So, and we use a lot of your systems for that as well too, for getting numbers in a neighborhood and finding out which properties, you know, are the most likely to sell. We have a system for that. You know, you knock around the expireds, you knock around the FSBOs, the recently expireds, the past expireds, the past FSBOs, knock around your listings, other listings you might have an open house for, or someone in your office has an open house for. So it's more of a targeted door knocking. They're very, very good at that. And they're also good at any online lead generation, right? Online lead generation is tough. That's usually inbound buyer leads. I'd say 95% of online lead gen, whether it's Google pay-per-click or, you know, some sort of Facebook social media leads, it's usually inbound buyer leads. And those require tons of follow-up with tons of rejection, no answers. So that D behavior tends to chase it down very, very well. And the C behavior does too, because 75% of inbound buyer leads typically is in the follow-up. You know, to be able to convert that lead of the first time you talk to it is a very small percentage of that business. You have to be very quick on that too. But even then, it's about 25% of the total business you should expect to get from online lead generation from those sources. So the C's and the D's, they're not people player. You know, they can just put a headphone on and go and work through the restraining orders from calling people over and over again through follow-up. Just kidding. They shouldn't get restraining orders. But they'll work through that over and over and over again. And they can move through it a little bit faster, which is why you see a lot of inside sales agents as the CDC behavior. They're not really they're not people. They're not out there selling real estate, you know, putting themselves out there and building relationships. They're staying at home. They got like a Dungeons and Dragons game opened up and maybe a Pink Floyd t-shirt and it's dark in the house and they're gaming and then they not knocking any of those people actually.
I was going to say, it sounds like my kind of people.
Yeah, I kind of like them too. Yeah, I got a lot of that in me. The point of the matter is they're not necessarily, they're less comfortable away from people. They're a little bit more introverted that way.
Yeah.
And so that's why you see them at such a high success rate with ISAs is because they can just put their head down and go in that headset. They don't actually have to make buddies with anybody. And that's a big difference out there with like referral-based business and prospecting business. The referral-based people, it's kind of weird to know the different people out there, right? I think most people want to be referral-based, which is great. I love it. Yeah. But I'll tell you, if you're a D or C behavior, you do want business to come from you, from a bunch of people you know, but you're going to need to put yourself out there to get it. And they, generally speaking, the Ds and the Cs have a hard time repeatedly marketing to their friends. You know what I mean? Because they want to keep their friends separate from their marketing. They don't want to be looking foolish to their friends. You know what I'm saying? So their attitude is like, I'm being fake. I'm loving on my friends to get their money. And I don't want that. I want genuine relationships with my friends. And I want to, you know, work the FSBOs and expires for people I don't know. You know what I mean? So that you run into that weird objection with the D's and the C's, whereas the I's and the S's tend to say, oh, I want to mix it all together. I don't care. I love them all anyway. You know what I mean? So so they naturally gravitate to that referral-based business, which is strange. And they look at the calling people, you know, the prospectors who look for business from people they don't know. They look at that with this attitude, like, I don't want to have people hanging up on me all day long. I don't want to be sending out bad juju all day long. I want to work with people I know that want to hear from me. And both sides can be right, but just understand they both generally tend to have those two sides. So if you're coaching or leading or training these people, it's really important to understand these two different perspectives, because people are different, man. They are absolutely different. And so knowing those differences, right? You move over into those I's, I'm putting them into things like networking groups, get them like involved in social groups, like maybe charitable organizations, sitting on boards of directors, service like Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions Clubs, service groups, referral groups like those are B&I, where they all get in there and it's like a business referral group that's professionally done just to meet people, getting involved in, PTAs, anything they can, like different, like the boards of different like youth sports, anything you can, your church groups, getting more involved in the church. They love people. So get them out in their strengths and just have them be the traditional agent from like 100 years ago that just was like the queen of the town that just knew everyone, the one
face-to-face relationships, friendships, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. She's going to walk through the country club. Oh, hi, Dave. Hi, John. She knows everything.
Right.
If you're the roofer in town, you got to be in good with her because she's the one that's going to send you all the business, right? You become the center of the spider web for all the business referrals out there, right? Open houses are great too because they love people. Put them out in front of people. You know what I mean? Definitely have them build their SOI. They don't necessarily like the CRM or the database, the computer part of that, but they're going to love the results enough to motivate them to do it so long as they have some accountability building it. And now social media marketing is huge for them. Like they need to be out there. So making sure they're getting out there and comfortable with social media. Those eyes love it. They'll gravitate to it. Just making sure their message is correct. And they have a definite systematized strategy with their personal profile and their business profiles out there. Very, very important for the I's because they should be very good at that. They should love it. They don't have a fear of putting themselves out there on social media like D's and I's do. They tend to really hide from that. They want to keep that very, very separate. So you have to work because social media is a huge aspect for branding anymore. And I know you don't like it, but I hate it too. If I didn't need it for my business I would not be on it. But I'm still, looking to earn income in this world. So if that's your mission, you need to kind of sell out your social media profiles a little bit here and get tough, And I say that's the D's and the C's, right? Get tough. They don't like that. That pushes back on them. What do you mean I'm not tough? Well, you're just too worried about what people think of you. And then all of a sudden I'm giving a lot of credibility to people. And those are very competitive people over there. So pushing back as a coach, that's the difference between a coach and a teacher. I'm going to push back a little bit there. So if I'm leading my people and trying to get them to do something they don't want to do, that may be how I do it, right? Protect that social media profile. It's not a place for political beliefs or you'll alienate the other half of the political parties. It's not a place for religious beliefs or you'll alienate the other religions. It really is, it's your website. And it needs to be treated professionally. So I try to work it that way with the D's and C's to get them to do it. The C profile, moving into that one, again, good at online lead generation because the follow-up and they can stay away from people they know a little bit. Believe it or not, both the C's and the S's are really good at geographic farming. Why? It is a slow roll that requires lots of systems, right? And the first thing I do is send our clients to REDX so they can get all of the leads from the local neighborhoods.
Love to hear that.
Which, get all the contact information, the emails, the mobile phones. Heck, you get them like their kids' phone numbers. It's creepy sometimes how the number you get. But but that's a lot of systemized contact. You're going to be mailing them. You're going to be controlling the entire ecosystem of a particular neighborhood or community, right? So you want to have like a geo fence around them online. You want to be marketing to them. You want to be calling them. You want to be door knocking them. You want to have huge open houses in there. You want to be everywhere they look. Ultimately, you want to have the most signs up, and then you can take their queen, and you are the winner. But to get there, you have to have all those systems in place. You got to not quit because it takes a long time to establish yourself in a farm. And most D's and I's quit. Where C's and S's, they'll stay with that system so long as they know that it'll work. So they tend to win because they set up systems and they stay with it. They have much more patience. than the D's and the I's can. So we love getting those C's and S's into farming because it just works, and they don't have to put, they're more marketing the neighborhood than they are themselves, right? And the C's are really good at direct mail and email marketing too, because they can kind of hide behind that. They don't need to use their mouth. So not in person, it's not verbal. So they want to send lots of information by direct mail and email marketing, which very low conversion rate. So it needs to not operate by itself. We need to put other things around it, like a farming system for entire targeted markets, but trying to target them at different demographics and different geography is kind of the idea with both S's and C's. We want to find niche markets for them and really drive them at that certain geography, like that certain neighborhood, or demographics like the military, the police force, or, certain groups of people. So we want to target those and then kind of hit them lots of different ways. So we are ever present and ubiquitous, so that everywhere that they look, they see us. So we target those agents in that direction as well too. You can see we're a little bit different approach from most coaching companies, and our leaders operate at a little bit higher level, I think, than other leaders as well too, because they have a very systemized approach. And once they get an agent that comes into their system that's been in another system, they're like, whoa, this is much more scientific. It's much more driven towards results, and your retention rates on your agent population goes up tremendously because there's some science and some proven tested results behind it as well too. Your S profiles, lastly, I'll be over there, huge SOI referral. I mean, they are the ultimate referral agent because they will build the systems. They will have the patience for it. I think I mentioned that earlier. Same with farming. Very good for S profiles to be farming. And then open houses, they love it. They will really nurture buyer leads or neighbors leads that come in to get more listings out of it. I love the farming SOI referral. But again, if you're a new S behavioral profile and you need money right now, you're going to have to do something a little bit painful from the other categories, because those things take a while. Farming an SOI database, I mean, yes, we want to be marketing and working on those right away, but you may not get money in the meantime. That takes a while to build those up. So I might want to start looking at some of the more difficult lead generation, the more uncomfortable things, until you get enough business under your belt, enough credibility under your belt, enough pending transactions under your belt.
Right. Well, and that's why I love the way you've broken down the system, Brian, is because I think, let's say I go in, I'm going to throw this back up so I can refer to this. Let's say I am an S and I am a new agent, and I can say, okay, what is it going to take for me to go succeed? Maybe wearing a D hat for a little while, right? Or maybe wearing an I hat. Okay, I can look at this and I can say, all right, well, I need to be, a little bit more aggressive, or I need to be a little bit more direct, right? I need to go do some expireds and FSBOs. Then once I'm able to build up the stuff that I'm more comfortable with, I can take off that D hat, settle back into my comfortable S life, and let my business run, kind of on those referrals and the SOI there, right? So, and just as an example, I love that, it's so dynamic and there's so many different ways to succeed in your natural behavior, right, in your natural disc, or try on some other hats. Really understand what it's going to take to put yourself in a different profile's shoes and succeed that way.
I love it. It provides a light at the end of the tunnel for you to only know that you only have to hold your breath so long until we get business up and running and we've got our true systems running, right? So it really, you always think about the agents that succeed in the world, for example, and it's always the ones that are outspoken, the loud ones, you know what I mean? But the quiet, shy ones that just won't put themselves out there tend to fall by the wayside. And if you've ran brokerages, you start to see that, you can kind of say the ones that are going to make it, the confident ones that can talk a lot, and the ones that that aren't extroverts, smaller percentages of success. But believe it or not, there's the tortoise and the hare story. As long as they can stay in the business, they can set up some systems where they're going to win the race ultimately. So you just got to know how to nudge them in those different directions. And I think, basically having them listen to this or watch this episode is a great way to make them all self-aware. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Listening to this, and all of a sudden they realize they get, okay, I know what's going on. And plus it's not coming from you, the leader. it's coming from these, two guys who are supposed to know what they're talking about,
Right. And that's what I love about this is I think that if anyone's watching and if anyone is maybe struggling in their business or they're new to the industry or they're kind of stuck and they're feeling like things are going slower than they need to, I think no matter who you are, right, but especially those people, go take a DISC test, figure out your profile, figure out your personality type here, and then go and re-listen to this podcast, re-listen to Brian's advice, and really, dive deep, practice that self-awareness, and try hard to understand what it will take to succeed, whether it's short-term based on your profile, whether it's long-term, and what other hats and what other profiles you need to step into to kind of fill the gaps and succeed wherever you're at in your business, right?
Love it. Love it.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Well, awesome. Well, we're running up on time here, Brian. I want to give you one last chance. Anything else you want to leave with our audience before we wrap up here?
No, I think, it's one of if you are, I will say, if you're interested in this and you've never really thought about the different types of ways you could generate business or train your agents or setting systems up like this, reach out to us. You get a free coaching consultation with us. It's EicenhowerCoaching.com. That's ICENHOWER coaching.com. Check it out, see if our systems are for you. This might be we definitely don't just teach and train it one way. We don't have just our system. I think we coach probably every system out there. And if there's one floating around I haven't heard of, I'm going to find it and I'm going to copy it. And we're going to teach that one too.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. We want to find what works best for every one of our clients.
Excellent. And I love what you said there about, so many coaches out there have one very specific, rigid way of doing things. And this seems like a system that is flexible and adaptable to help people find what actually is going to meet their personality and help them succeed. And most importantly, be happy in real estate, right? Without forcing themselves to do something that they're not, that they don't like, or figuring out a way to do something they wouldn't normally like in a more comfortable setting, right? So absolutely. I love that, Brian. Thank you so much again for joining us today. To our audience, go take that DISC test and figure out your personality profile there and re-listen to this podcast. I'm going to keep reiterating this because I think it's so important to figure out where you need to be in your business and how you can maybe motivate yourself or step into a role that's going to help you succeed. So Brian, thank you. To our audience, join us every Thursday, 1:30 Mountain Time on YouTube, on Facebook. Check us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts if you want to listen, and definitely go check out Icenhower Coaching at EicenhowerCoaching.com. That's all for today. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Andrew.